Hello everybody, Quetch here, and today we're going to be talking about the new Tier 2 HENM Tonberry Sovereign. Our group recently got a very clean clear from start to end, and we've done this fight a number of times. So I wanted to go over first of all, the basics of the fight, but also like things to watch out for, strategies to bring in going into it. One note, this is not hard mode as of the time of this recording. Nobody knows how to pop the Tonberry Sovereign in hard mode, so if we eventually get that clear, I will be making a separate video about that. But likely not a lot of these mechanics will change, so you can get to fighting this mob with this guide. So let's just get into talking about how the fight works. The first thing you're going to encounter is every X number of seconds, the Tonberry Sovereign will spawn ads. And those ads are like Ninja, Black Mage, and maybe a Thief Tonberry, I forget, but the most consequential one is definitely the Black Mage Tonberry, because that is the one you're gonna have to watch out for. They do like Aga 2 spells and will be centered on the person who has hate. One big aspect of this fight is that the Tonberry, during its different HP percentages, will do more. Namely, with regards to ads, there will be more ads summoned along the way. So let's take a look at when that happens. So if you think about the health of the Tonberry as being from 100 and going down to 0, when you spawn, it'll be at 100, and it'll summon one Tonberry ad every, I think it's 26 seconds. It's pretty tame at that point. However, there are breakpoints at 80%, 60%, 40%, and 20% you need to be aware of. Between 100 and 80%, it is one Tonberry ad. Between 80 and 60, it is 3, I believe. We'll do this. Between 60 and 40, I believe it's 5. And then 40 to 20, likely 7. I'm not sure on these other numbers, but basically you need to develop a strat to be deleting all those Tonberry ads anyway, whenever they come up. And then let's just say 9. I don't know if it's that many. Basically, once you hit 3, you need to have some kind of AoE strat in order to be taking down these ads. Otherwise, they're going to overwhelm your tanks, and you're going to lose people to Aga 2 spells from the Black Mage. So that is the ads. What we do is we will use single tier nukes on when there's only one ad. So this is going to be like tier 4 nukes. Then when there's 3 ads popping, we're using Aga 2 spells. And then we'll continue to do that all the way until this percentage, where I believe the Tonberries have higher health, or maybe it's just like a damage split from Black Mage spells. But basically from 40 onwards, we're doing Aga 3. So that is how to handle the ads. They're going to be insistent. You need to be handling them. There may be other strategies for doing AoEs to get these down, but this has been working for us and has worked for us in our clear. So that's the ads. Now the other important thing is your percentages. So every 20% mark, this boss is going to do a number of things. First of all, it's going to spawn extra ads. So you need to be prepared for those when they pop. But also, it's going to choose a player and teleport them to the other side of the arena. And when it does that, it is going to, well, arena. Basically, the Tonberry is going to go back to its starting position instantly and then pick a player and put them about, I don't know, maybe 30 yalms from the Tonberry and lock them in place. The Tonberry is then going to slow walk all the way to that player, and if it gets there, they take 99k damage, and they cannot be raised. This player is permanently out of your alliance for the remainder of the fight. So, what is the play? In order to get the player unlocked and the Tonberry to stop his death walk, you need to do some number of magic bursts, and that number is going to change depending upon the health phase that the Tonberry is at. Remember, we've hit 80%, and the Tonberry starts its first slow walk. You need to do something like 6 magic bursts. Pretty sure that's the number. Again, you're just going to need as many of these things as you can with each phase, so it's best to just have as much as you can. So you want to skill chain and magic burst the Tonberry the moment it starts to slow walk, and you want to burst, say, 6 times. Now, again, I'm not sure what these actual numbers are. Let's just say 9, 12, and 15. Essentially, like more than you would in a normal situation. Now, the next most important thing that happens is once you finish doing all your magic bursts and it unlocks the player from the death walk, the Tonberry is going to astral flow your whole alliance for whatever element you bursted with. So typically what we do is we set up a light skill chain, and we actually have a backup light skill chain, because say the player that gets grabbed is one of your skill chainers. So we have 2 sets of skill chains ready to go. And we'll say start with light. Light has the properties of light, of wind, of fire, and of thunder. You want to start out by doing, on the first death walk, you want to start out by doing light magic bursts, and then you need to vary your magic bursts because there's another mechanic at play, and that mechanic is if you ever repeat the same magic burst, the Tonberry will astral flow twice. And that's almost a guaranteed wipe. So what we do is we magic burst light in the first one because that's easy. You can do Dia, basically Dia 2. And there should be enough mages in your comp in order to do that. The other thing is, once you start hitting these higher numbers, you need to have a plan for how you're going to do that many. My recommendation is if your melees are sub-ninja, they can burst wind, thunder, fire with ninja tools. So you're adding a number of magic bursts you wouldn't normally have. And remember, you already have black mages who are taking care of Agas and whatnot. So you should have enough magic bursts for at least the 60% death walk. It might be a little tight on the 40% death walk, and this is where you may need your second skill chain. And then the last death walk, I will get to later on in this, some of the strategies you can use. So Tonberry hits 80%, it starts the death walk, you skill chain it, you magic burst it 6 times, it pops back, it astral flows, and you need to survive that. So what we do is we have right about here, before the death walk is about to happen, we will use bar spell and carol on everybody in order to make sure that we survive the astral flow that we've chosen to do. With light, there's no bar light. So, and luckily, like, this is early on in the fight. If you need to stop and recover after this point, you've got time to do that. But then remember, we move on to, say thunder, fire, and wind. Then we want to do like bar arrow and wind carol, whatever you need to do to survive. Change the element you're bursting each time so you don't get double astral flowed. And that is the basic overview of the fight. Now we're going to talk about some of the things that are going to be challenges along the way. So here's a good question. What if the Tonberry reaches his death walk and summons ads, and those ads need to be killed, and you've got to Aga them to kill them, right? If you magic burst the wrong spell, you run the risk of triggering the Tonberry's wrong astral flow, the one you're not prepared for. So my recommendation is if you're doing light skill chains, and those are for your bursts, make sure that the black mages are doing like Blizzard. That way it won't be part of the magic burst on the wrong element. The other option you have is to, whatever the black mages are casting, to nuke out the Tonberry ads, make sure it's the one that's going to work with the burst. Because then, you'll get actually a little bit more damage out of the spell, which you shouldn't need if you followed the original layout that I mentioned. But it is possible, and it will throw in an extra magic burst. Now, who is doing that? So I recommend designating one person to mop up ads, or maybe even a rotation of people, because remember, every 26 seconds the ads are coming out. But basically taking turns with the black mage, because everybody else needs to be focused on these X number of magic bursts you have to do along the way. And by the way, you'll know magic bursts are working because the Tonberry has a message in the chat that says, like, you have a flickering lantern, or your flickering lantern is increasing in brightness or whatever. And that's when you know you're doing the mechanic properly. Now, I also mentioned at the final death walk, you have to do something like 15 bursts. It may be more. Again, it's just too high for your standard magic burst situation. So what we do is we will use either Mikage from ninjas in order to get out a lot of magic bursts in one rep, or have Red Mage's Chain Spell. If you're doing only Chain Spell and you don't have any Mikages in your lineup, you will likely need your second skill chain, and this is where it's important to have Icarus Wings for your melees. Basically, the entire fight, you want to have the ability to pivot onto like Icarus Wings if like your backup skill chain isn't enough to get to do the mechanic. But remember, those basically have a 2-hour medication status, so you can't completely rely on them unless you're making sure you're getting your win on this particular run. But again, that's the strategies we used, and then have had success. Like I said, in our recent clear, we one-shot it, which felt really good because we've done this fight a number of times and continuously had issues with various things. I do want to point out here, the very last phase is there's a lot of Tonberry ads, and you may get overwhelmed. You just need to DPS it and destroy it. At that point, if you've been smart enough or fortunate enough to maybe even get melee buffs on your melees, you can burn this phase down, but just throw everything you possibly can at the Tonberry. One other thing that I might recommend at this stage is using like Summoner 2-hour Astral Flow and just doing it. Just whatever you can help clear all this massive amount of ads that get summoned, the last 20% is an absolute Zerg phase. Which actually brings me to another important point about this fight, and that is your tanks. Preferably you want 2 tanks for this. Ninja works, Ninja helps, and it has Mikage. So Ninja's a great choice. You could probably get away with dual Ninja tanking. I would recommend a Paladin just to have the extra tools that Paladin has, and that is for a couple of reasons. So first of all, you do not want the Tonberry Sovereign for any reason to look away from your tanks and start looking at the other party members. And that is important because what happens is the Tonberry Sovereign summons his ads based upon where he's currently standing. So if tanks lose hate and it goes to the mages, and then the mages get like Tonberry ads, and then the tank uses a like snap hate move like Sentinel and pulls the Tonberry back, guess what? Whoever is Aga-ing the ads, the black mages, if they were targeting the Tonberry Sovereign, you know, maybe trying to start their cast before the ads spawn, if they're trying to time it well, what's going to happen is this dude's going to snap back, and then your Aga's going to hit him, but not kill the ads because they're all gathered, you know, over here by your other party members. So it's very important that the tanks, A, do not get throat stabbed. Throat stab is a hate reset and sets the tank to like 10% of their health or something like that. So that's something to watch out for. You can range that. So if you see throat stab starting to go off and you're tanking, just walk away about 10 yalms and then come back. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, the tanks need to have made sure that they have wiped their Tonberry hate with the quest inside of the Temple of Ugalepi. I will have that quest linked in the description of this video. And generally, if you think you're going to take hate at any point during the fight, you should probably have your hate wiped. I will say this. As far as I can tell, the Tonberry only uses the single target grudge move throughout most of this fight, which will one-shot a tank who hasn't reset their hate. So that's why it's important for the tanks to do it. Now, I have seen everyone's grudge on this fight, but I think I only saw it sub 20%, and that was an instant KO on the tank. Everyone's grudge utilizes the hate of the people in the Tonberry's vicinity and then does that amount of damage to a single target. So likely, even if the tanks have wiped their hate, when everyone's grudge goes off, it's probably going to be a one-shot, which is part of what leads to the chaos in the earlier phase, or in this final phase. Now, say you hit the 20%, you do the death walk, and then the very first thing that happens is everyone's grudge kills your tank. Guess what? The Tonberry is back to storming the mages, and then the ads are all over the place. You might not get the ads down in time, and everything goes haywire. So I actually have a recommendation, which we partially did in our clear, but haven't refined yet. Once you do that last death walk, if everybody pops poison potions and gets in range of the Tonberry Sovereign, you're not worried about Sleepka. So part of the reason, so remember the sorcerers, the black mage Tonberries I mentioned from earlier, their Aga 2 spells, you know, wiping your group are the big challenge. The other thing they can do is Sleepka. If everybody gets in range for the final 20%, you don't have a chance of the ads getting spawned in random locations and not going down. And then you just want to like focus the Tonberry down till it's dead. So people have poison potions, they're in range. Yes, you're in danger of Aga 2 spells, but if everything stays grouped, you're likely to delete all the Tonberry ads as they're spawning anyway. And my experience is those ads being spread around is the #1 way this fight goes down the toilet. Okay? So that is your last 20%, and that is some recommendation. So just to recap, tanks want to reset their hate. They want to make sure to dodge throat stab, and a ninja tank is really good for that final phase anyway. The only other final note, and I hope you stayed till the end of this explanation, is that it has been reported that if you burst the same element of the day, there's a chance it's an automatic one-shot. I have not confirmed this personally, but I will say this. If you're ever being hit by an element that corresponds to the day, you have a chance of the day damage proc, which is going to add 10% damage to the astral flow as it hits you, right? So say you burst fire at the 40% phase and it's Fire's Day, even just the normal astral flow that you get hit with brings me as a thief with a full MTT set down to like 200 health, right? So if you're adding 10% damage on that, you're just going to eat more deaths anyway. So avoid bursting on the damage of the corresponding day that you are. The way we do this and still maintain our light magic bursts is we will vary the first burst. So say it is Fire's Day. We will, on the very first burst, we'll do Darkness and burst Ice. Then on the second phase, we will do Light, then Thunder, then Wind, or whatever. You want to do Light second because you have less magic bursts of that element. That way, we're not bursting fire at all in our rotation. And in general, if you have like Warrior and Thief as your skill chains, which are really great because they have, you know, Fusion and Light, they're, you know, just great skill chain partners for this. You can swap to Darkness by using like Steel, Cyclone, Evisceration, whatever, and you can make sure to dodge that element of the day. Now, the last and final important aspect involving skill chains, to the best of your ability, you want to use weapon skills that don't miss or are very unlikely to miss. So Decimation is a 3-hit, Shark Bite from a Thief, you can sneak attack. Now, this Slow Walk is very skill testing to Thief because it is slow enough that if you are right behind the Tonberry, you can sneak attack and weapon skill without losing TP. But you need to be vigilant about not losing your TP. Warrior's a little bit easier because they can just get up next to him and hit that Decimation macro. Do not try to menu this, by the way. If you're typically a person who menus your skill chains, I recommend making a keybind or a macro because you're trying to hit a moving target with a weapon skill, and you do not want to be subject to your character facing in the wrong direction or something. You need to skill chain this immediately, okay? So I recommend Warrior and Thief. You're gonna need a Thief in your alliance anyway, or any way to make Light reposition onto Darkness if you need to, if the corresponding day is a threat. But otherwise, that's the entire fight. Recently, there was a mechanic removed. It did have an Intimidate that would randomly intimidate your magic burst. That has been taken out. We've yet to see what hard mode looks like, as mentioned earlier in this guide. But lastly, I just want to mention a little bit more about your party comp or your alliance comp that you might want to bring. I recommend some summoners rotating in Stone Skin prior to each Deathwalk phase. White mages or anybody that is ready to do a Kiraga 2 after the Astral Flow is very helpful too to get things moving again. Bards are especially needed for not only just Carol, but also Ballad and melee buffs. The Tonberry does have a decent evasion and uses Psi, which is like an evasion buff. So probably if you're keeping up melee buffs, I recommend not only just using Sushi on your melees, but also using Double Madrigal. Even with that, we weren't capped, and especially if Psi goes up and it's not dispelled in time. You can, as a melee, you can do weapon skills in order to keep pushing damage percentages down, but you do want to be ready at the percent phases in order to do your skill chain magic burst. I think I've covered everything. If you have any further questions, be sure to post them in the comments down below, and I will do my best to get back to you. I don't think I missed anything, but you never know. And good luck out there if you're trying this fight for yourself, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, YouTube.